June is a fairly positive month with many events to look forward to. You've got the summer solstice, you've got Juneteenth, you've got National Fudge Day. But the biggest thing about June is that it's Pride Month. But unfortunately, the LGBTQIA plus community has to still walk on eggshells even during Pride Month. And no one seems to gain more scrutiny than the black members of the LGBTQ community. The black community expels so much homophobia, but why? Why are we so queerphobic when our ancestors embraced queerness? Before I get into this very long video, I would like to properly introduce myself. Hello, I'm Tam the Yapper, and welcome to my commentary channel where I talk about stuff that comes to my mind, which is a lot. So get good and comfy and have some water nearby because I have so much to speak on. And this is probably going to be one of my longest videos yet. Now, before I get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I'm going to go ahead and set some house rules and give a disclaimer. If I see one homophobic and or racist comment, I will block you, report you, and contact your job in that order. If you think I'm joking, try it and you'll be crying in an unemployment office. And now for a trigger warning, this video will be talking about homophobia and racism, religious abuse, murder of queer people, and self-exit. If you feel like this video will trigger you in any way, shape, or form, please click off this video. I should have a more lighthearted video somewhere in either the description or in one of these little pop-ups right here. But please take care of yourself, okay? So to backtrack on everything, homophobia in the black community seems like it's just getting much, much worse, especially nowadays. And here's my theory that is based on some factual information. It's because of our history of being the most religious group in regards to Christianity and a subgroup of black people that call themselves the foundational black Americans. I know I'm going to lose some subscribers with that, but I do not care. I'm going to say what needs to be said. So let's start with Christianity. Moreover, European colonizers invading Africa, because that's what it was. They were invading Africa and bringing diseases of the mind and body. But pre-colonial Africa was very queer-coded, and sexuality was complex, fluid, if you will. And just for a heads up, I'm going to be interchanging between LGBT and queer, mostly because it just rolls off the tongue better compared to LGBTQIA. Yeah. As a matter of fact, there was a tomb that was excavated that dated back to 2400 BC of ancient Egypt of two men. Their names are listed here. I am not even going to attempt to pronounce them because I know for a fact I'm going to butcher them. But they were entombed together, embracing each other as lovers. And that's just the start of the queerness in Africa. As you know, I've talked about the Congo Kingdom before in a previous video. I'll definitely link that as well. But the 16th century Portuguese colonizers saw men in the Congo Kingdom, and they were wearing clothes that the colonizers deemed feminine. And they said that the men, quote, refused to wear traditional masculine clothing and served as passive women in the abominable sin. And that's pretty much a precursor to where I'm going to go further in this video about Christianity and how much it turned queer people into monsters instead of people. And another tribe in Africa, the Basotho of Lesotho, had a very matriarchal system, and they would have long-term lesbian relationships, so to speak. But they was more romantic, like homo-romantic instead of homosexual, because they said, according to this anthropologist, Lima Costa K. Kendall, it was stated by the tribe that you cannot have sex unless somebody has a koa, which is how how am I gonna word this? This is the stick. Yeah, we'll call it a stick from here on out. Then another tribe, the Agikuyu, had lesbian relationships as well, as part of the Gikuyu women, but mostly for convenience sake. The younger women would marry older widows to help with raising the children and also to help comfort the widows during their time of need. So it was very much homo-romantic instead of homosexual. Like there was not much sexualization going on. It was just romance and comfort, just doing girl stuff. And they even had talks of queerness as part of the Yoruba tribe. BC Almi, a Nigerian gay rights activist, said that in the language of Yoruba, the word homosexual is adofuru, which is basically an easier way of saying that someone has a no fun time, we'll say. And it's not meant as to be derogatory. It's just an adjective. It's just to describe somebody, But with the European colonizers, they came and threw a rock in the happy queerness that was pre-colonial Africa. Now, modern day African countries that once embraced their queer people have made laws to have them either thrown in prison or no longer in the mortal plane. Now, this article was written back in 2023. As of 2023, 30 African countries have made same-sex relationships illegal. 69 African countries have just completely banned same-sex weddings altogether. And it only gets worse from here with the attacks on queer people. During the first half of 2021, homophobic groups attacked queer people in Senegal. 27 queer people were arrested in Cameroon, while a non-binary lesbian was murdered. 24 queer people were murdered in South Africa, and 24 people were murdered in South Africa. And in 2023, Uganda passed the Anti-Homosexuality Act that lumped HIV and homophobic laws together, since everybody and their mama thinks that HIV is a gay virus, and I say that in air quotes, but the origins of HIV and other STIs are a whole nother video. And with this law in place, it proposed the death penalty for quote unquote aggravated homosexuality. And they called basically same-sex relationships or same-sex marriage or same-sex acts in general debauchery, which is a big 180 compared to how African people viewed queerness. But all this was caused by the European colonizers bringing over a book with one fucking word, that has been mistranslated for years to make queerness a sin. And you know what? I never thought I'd say this, but shout out to r/Christianity. This Redditor gave a link to further describe that this word, good Lord help me, arsenokotai. I think that's how you pronounce it. Means boy molesters instead of homosexual. Prior to all the 1946 translations, that word was to refer to someone who was in the Epstein files. And if you think that that's just a lie, because this is a Reddit post and not an article, well, how about I show you an article then? This is the article from advocate.com, How a Bible Error Changed History and Turned Gays into Pariahs, and it was written by J.D. Glass. Now, as of February 11th of 1946, the Revised Standard Version changed arsenokotai to instead meaning boy molester to mean homosexual in 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 9. And that pretty much stuck throughout all translations after that. And Oxford shared with Forge, a non-profit organization that was also put into Leviticus, where a lot of people like to go to Leviticus, but Leviticus has so many food laws that if they were relevant today, all y'all will be going to hell. Because y'all can't give up bacon, y'all can't give up shrimp, y'all can't give up wearing mixed fabrics, all y'all will be burning. But anyway, in the English version, it's translated to man shall not lie with man, But the German version, before the mistranslation, man shall not lie with young boys as he does with women, for it is an abomination. And they refer that word again, arsenokotai, to mean boy molesters, saying that boy molesters will not inherit the kingdom of God. And there's a German word that I'm going to try to pronounce, but if y'all Germans come for me in the comments, just know I don't speak your language. Please be gentle. It's this word right here, and I know for a fact they pronounce everything. So it's Knabenschwander, I think. Knabenschwander. That also means boy molester. So if I butchered that, please don't come for me hard in the comments. I I have a speech impediment. It's hard for me to speak English sometimes, But despite this mistranslation being confirmed, people still run with the translation meaning homosexual instead of pedophile. And it's predominantly black Christians too. And this amount of brainwashing dating back all the way to chattel slavery, plus the harmful anti-intellectual rhetoric that is being spewed by foundationally black Americans, which they're going to get a whole video themselves, trust and believe, has continued the spread of queerphobia in the black community. Now, for all y'all wondering what an foundational black American is, total rundown: FBAs believe that they're the descendants of Africans who were never enslaved, which is cool, I guess. Or there's this other thing. They think they are indigenous to Turtle Island, which is North America. Yeah, they say that shit. They say that shit, and I'm just over here like,
shout out my Gucci.
You like it, I love it. No, good and damn well I'm not about to argue with someone, because as the ancient proverb says, when you argue with a fool, you prove that there are two. But there's just so much ignorance in the black community that we desperately need to work on if we're ever going to move forward as a community. And if that means kicking some people out, hey, Harriet Tubman shot a few, so it is what it is. And with all this ignorance, many, in fact, too many black people forget that pride was a protest against police brutality. And it was all led by a black woman. And this woman was known as Marsha P. Pay it no mind Johnson. A black trans woman led the protests that became the pride parades that we have to this day. And it was all thanks to her throwing the first brick. On June 28th of 1969, New York police officers raided the Stonewall Inn, which is a gay club, on Christopher Street in New York City. And throughout this entire time, the police have been storming gay bars and arresting so many queer people. Marsha P. Johnson was at the Stonewall Inn at that time and said, you know what, enough is enough. And she led riots to end police brutality against queer people. And that's not the only activism she has. Johnson joined the Gay Liberation Front, ACT UP, which stands for AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power, an international organization to bring attention to the AIDS epidemic, and co-founded the Street Transvestite Action Revolutionaries, or STAR, with Sylvia Rivera, a trans Latina. Now, they say transvestite, which is a very old term that I will not use. We just say transgender people nowadays. But hey, it was a different time back then. And Marsha P. Johnson was such a pivotal figurehead for the queer community by marching in these pride protests that then became pride parades, leading people to helping with getting attention towards the AIDS epidemic. When she came to New York, she only had a few dollars to her name and a dream. I don't think she expected this to come much of it. This so much of this to come from it with what she had. But she did. She did a phenomenal job with helping the queer community to advocate for themselves and for each other, especially black queer people. But with all this attention, unfortunately, there was bound to be people who would wish and then do harm to her. On July 6, 1992, Johnson's body was found floating in the Hudson River, and she was only 46 years old. She had so much to live for. 46. That's very young, despite what social media wants to say. That's very young for a woman to just be discarded like trash. And someone harbored so much hate towards her for being this pivotal figure, for just being herself, that they ended her life, allegedly. I have to say that because this case is still open. The NYPD initially ruled her death as a self exit, but her friends immediately rejected that claim because number one, they said that she didn't even have those tendencies, that she was full of life. In fact, they had just finished their Pride March for that year. And two, her friends noted that she had been constantly harassed for months. The harassment seemed to reach a peak days before she was found in the Hudson. At first, they had closed it as a self exit, but after so much pressure, they thankfully reopened it in 2012 as a homicide, but this case is still unsolved. So Marsha P. Johnson still has not seen justice for her murder because that's what it is, a murder. This just provides more evidence to the claim that trans black women are the most vulnerable out of the queer community. Racism, misogyny, and overall ignorance quite literally means life or death for these women every day. Not only are these prejudices physically harmful, they're also mentally harmful. The Trevor Project did a 2024 survey on mental health and LGBTQ plus youth, and they had found that 39% of LGBTQ plus young people seriously considered attempting self exit in the past year, including 46% of transgender and non binary people, with youth of color presenting higher than white queer people. And 1 in 10 people, that's 12%, have attempted self exit in the past year. 54% of transgender and non binary young people found their schools to be gender affirming, those who did report lower rates of attempting self exit. 45% of transgender and non binary young people have reported that they or their family have considered moving to a different state because of LGBTQ plus related politics and laws, and 90% of LGBTQ plus young people said their well being was negatively impacted due to recent politics. 49% of LGBTQ plus young people ages 13 to 17 have experienced bullying. And that's just the youth. They haven't talked to the elders of the queer community. But there's one article that gives more insight to the older queer people, and that's a recorded dialogue between two black lesbians that are feminist writers, by the way. Their names are Jewel Gomez and Barbara Smith. And they're basically having a conversation about how homophobia affects black women's mental health, particularly black lesbians' mental health. Barbara starts out by recounting her youth. She says, I've lived my adolescence and young adulthood in terror. Homophobia is a logical extension of sexual oppression because sexual oppression is about rules. One gender does this, the other gender does that. Jewel piggybacks by saying, I think the interconnection of racism and sexism has been so profound that we don't even know how homophobia is going to be difficult for us as black women. Racists use Christianity against black people, and then black people turn around and use Christianity against gays. Jewel ends by saying, this insidiousness of homophobia lies in the fact that we've been forced to find ways to balance our contact with the community with our needs to continue to grow as black lesbians. We straddle the fence that says we cannot be the uplifters of the race and lesbians at the same time, That's what makes it so dangerous for our emotional health as Black lesbians. As lesbians, we have so much to teach the Black community. And I'll be sure to leave a link for that article as well. They talk back and forth about a lot of things, and I found that very insightful while I was reading it. So I'll definitely link that as well. But it's not just up to lesbians to educate the gay community. It's gay people, it's bi people. Matter of fact, there's so much biphobia in the Black community that deserves an episode as well. Episode. I meant video. What am I talking about? It's up to trans people and non-binary people. Hell, the allies gotta step up too. The fuck? We all gotta work together to rid ourselves of this harmful rhetoric. We have to unlearn this if we're going to move forward. There's so many things we have to unlearn to move forward as a community, and this is one of them. So to conclude, Black members of the LGBTQI plus community are by far the most scrutinized and most hated out of all queer people in general. So yes, it's not just hatred with the Black community, it's hatred throughout all races in the LGBTQ community. I'm looking at you, white gays, but you love choking on Black.
Whoa, brother. Whoa, now.
And another thing, I am so sick of hearing about a gay agenda. Like, if queer people have any type of agenda, it's to exist, it's to just be themselves without any form of persecution and to be loved for being themselves. And as a pansexual woman, I want to be loved for being myself too, no matter who I've dated, who I prefer to date, so on and so forth. Because every person deserves to have that feeling of love without being ridiculed, without being objectified, and without being hated just for who they are. But that is all I have for right now. If you like this video, be sure to give it a like, comment, and share this video. You know, do it for the community. Do it for the LGBTQ. And if you really like this video and want to see more videos like it, then be sure to subscribe to this channel. Because who knows? I might follow up my word and do a video on how biphobic the Black community is. Because seeing these posts about DL men makes me wonder, are they really DL? Or are you biphobic? But anyways, be sure to wash your hands, stay hydrated, mask up, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. And I know I talked briefly about the HIV/AIDS epidemic, but seriously though, use protection, use condoms, use dental dams, use anything known to man, use contraceptives, even though they don't prevent against STIs, but still use contraceptives. And I will see you guys the next time I have a think piece. Take care now.